so young. You make me feel that spring sprung. And every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I wanna go play hide and seek. I wanna go and bounce.
The online workshop will be starting shortly, so make sure you've got everything ready to go, and we'll be with you in a few minutes.
Forget-me-nots. You make me feel so young. You make me feel there are songs to be sung, bells to be rung, and a wonderful fling to be flung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I do today. 'Cause you make me feel so young. Make me young. You make me feel that spring sprung. And every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I wanna go play hide and seek. I wanna go and bounce the moon like a fake balloon.
Welcome, guys. So whether you're an old hat at online workshops or this is a brand new experience, quick question. Do you ever feel like you're not quite doing everything you can in terms of your dog's exercise and his wellness? Yeah, we've all been there. We turn to a Google search and we get bamboozled because one search says one thing and the next one says that's completely wrong. And sadly with dog stuff, much of that bad advice can actually harm your dog. I know that you've been questioning that yourself. You want to know exactly what's right for your dog and be able to start it now. Am I right? It's crazy. When you sit right down and think about it, it's just easier to let the dog do his thing. I'm just like you. I've been on both sides of that fence, and sometimes it works fine and sometimes it doesn't. Now maybe you're like I was and struggle to come up with new ideas for things to do and for things to use in your search for activities to give your dog exercise and mental stimulation. And you kind of felt guilty that you didn't have the fancy gear that others had or the time to do it. And you got bored. It's frustrating. You see all those dogs doing fun stuff, looking perfectly trained, even showing up on their owners' perfectly edited social posts. What do they know that you don't? Wondering, is that even possible with my own dog? You can do this. Every one of you can. You've got amazing dogs. They are your canvas to create incredible experiences. You just need some building blocks and a system to guide you. Now, you may have heard that you need a bunch of bright and colorful gear and that you need to do a fitness plan, but I'm here to tell you that for some people, that is exactly what they need. But for most of us, that's a recipe for, well, why exactly did you stop going to the gym yourself? I'm here to tell you there is a better way, a way that works for everyone, for every dog, It works anywhere, with any budget, and it builds happier, more confident dogs. Now, we all want this, right? No, not the golden puppy, silly, although she's awesomely cute. The stillness and the calmness, knowing that our dogs have used their minds and their bodies, and that we are doing the very best for them. Our goal is to guide you and your dog to be the very best you each can possibly be at all of your life stages. We are not here to tell you to stop teaching your dog cool tricks or to stop using public places in your world as your equipment. We are not here to convince you to do half an hour fitness work every day with your dog. Seriously, who has time for that? Well, except right now if you happen to be listening to this in the middle of the pandemic. We're here to teach you how to take what you already have and make it amazing, to build a strong or a stronger foundation, to know what building blocks to use. We build toolboxes and we teach you how to keep adding to those toolboxes, yours and your dog's. So that's what we're here for. And I know you have a dream of a family life with a happy, healthy, active, and calm dog, and being able to include him in your own lifestyle at whatever life stage he is at. And I want to show you how to make that happen. So what I'm going to show you isn't new. And you might find yourself thinking, ridiculous, none of this matters, Debbie. They are just games and toys, and I can do whatever I want. And that's true. But that duck out of water feeling, that resistance, is life's way of telling you a few simple tweaks to what you're already doing, what you already know, can make all the difference. You might find yourself thinking, how can this possibly work? It's so simple. But remember, everything we teach works if you do the work and you follow the plan. I'm going to show you how you can take simple brain and body games using stable and wiggly stuff, and that will give you a tired dog, a happier dog, a smarter dog in under 15 minutes a day. So I'm going to be moving pretty quickly through here since I have a lot to cover, and I want to make sure that you write down any questions, and there will be an opportunity for you to get those answered at the end. And if you are thinking, hey, she's not live with me, you're absolutely right. We've presented some form of this online workshop live over 50 times in the last year, and because our clients come from all over the world, over 30 countries at this point, in all different time zones, most people watch the replay. So we decided to make this available on demand, just for you. So let's dive right in. So I know most of you have no clue who I am, so if it's okay with you, I'd like to take a couple of minutes and just share a few things with you. First, I'm 64. If I told you everything that's helped me get to this point, we'd be here for a month. I'm not going to do that. I love adventure, challenge, and variety. I'm really weird that way. I spent a corporate life as a business consultant and as a professional accountant until I jumped ship and followed my passion for coaching, speaking, and travel. I have English Cocker Spaniels and Gordon Setters, and my life has always included a dog or two or five that I train to fit my life. Today, there is only one moment. I didn't choose to become a professional dog trainer. I fell into it like most people do. I had my own personal experience, but I was just like you, working 9 to 5, grabbing extra overtime, and living paycheck to paycheck. Until one day, 18 years ago, someone asked me to teach agility classes, and teaching a couple of classes took the edge off my financial stress. From that point, there have been multiple agility, obedience, rally, show, field championships, both for my dogs and my students' dogs. I've long since stopped counting the workshops and seminars I've both taught and taken around North America. I take on big challenges like creating the first and largest indoor dog sport training facility in Eastern Canada, hosting national championships, and building new businesses. And then I found myself at the first of many inflection points, and you'll hear about that a bit later. I used to happily give up my own training session to help someone get over an obstacle. It's an awesome feeling to learn, to experiment with that, and then be able to share what you've learned with others to help them grow, like this workshop, and what I hope you'll do with what you learn here. It's not easy admitting when you're stuck, especially as a professional, and I have the utmost respect for anyone who, like you, is brave enough to seek out resources, ask good questions, and entertain new ideas. We all need a coach, guidance, a different perspective. As a competitive athlete all my life, the incredible power of foundations has always been my frameworks. Whether it's in my sports car racing, yes, I did that for 25 years, climbing mountains, yep, I do that too, or building a business. Exercising your dog the right way is the same. It's 100% about foundations. Now, some people call them boring, but I love to polish them, make them exciting, interesting, challenging, and fun. For me, the love of a healthy lifestyle, good eating, balanced exercise, and fun, and seeing how my dogs respond to that when I apply it to them is what drives me. And I love sports psychology, mental mastery, using your brain well. So, back in 2011, I discovered something they call indoor exercise. You may have heard it called canine conditioning, FitPaws, or TotoFit. Those last two are brands of equipment, and it intrigued me. And ever since doing kinesiology in university, I've always had a deep interest in movement and safety in performance. And for 2 years, I muddled my way around learning the traditional pathways that came out of the rehab world and discovered a whole new sphere of use. But more than anything, it sparked an idea. So I don't know how you got to this webinar or why, but I know that you may be someone who is challenged to find time in your day for the 2 or more hours of dog walks that the dog industry keeps telling you must do. Or maybe you're someone who values every minute of your life and wants to reach a goal or have learned something new and valuable by the end of this pandemic or by the end of the year or the month that you can use going forwards into your new normal. Maybe you're someone who's done trying to fill your days of self-isolation with dog walks when dog parks and trails are closed and the idea bank is bankrupt. Or maybe you're like the cat. Curiosity hooked you, and you want to learn more about the different ways to exercise the dog indoors and have fun doing it. Make it purposeful. Or maybe it just simply goes without saying, you've seen your personal results. You know there must be a connection with your dog of that exercise. And if you said yes to any of those, you are absolutely in the perfect place. So, first, let me tell you, this is a training webinar only. I've stripped out all of the case studies, the marketing tactics, everything, and brought more training. The only thing you need to know is that there is a link to the Fit Body, Fit Mind Dog 2.0 Vault of Learning at the very end. There is absolutely nothing for sale or available to buy on this webinar. The Vault of Learning is over 95% free content that you control access to, not me. We'll show you how to get your library card free, and so let's get going as we have a ton to cover. So I want you to close your eyes and imagine what your ideal life might look like. Imagine you had no stress in your life. All your frustrations and your problems had vanished. Imagine that everything around you was calm and focused and vibrant and joyful and not barking and jumping and generally being an ass. And I'm not talking about the dog. Everything. Just stay in that moment. Feel it. Having a dog that is calm, tired, and loving the new exercise plan. Imagine he's making better choices and doing less annoying things. Imagine you're smiling and laughing more with him, and so is your family. No more stress or worry or guilt over doing the right thing for your dog. You have a new leash on your lives. That feels good, right? Can you see that for your life? So I know you're wondering, what is this indoor exercise stuff really? Well, it's kind of like having a million personal trainers running around inside your dog, getting each muscle and brain cell working at its best. When your dog is doing indoor exercise, it's similar to when you have a great hike outdoors. Remember how that feels? You spend the whole time carrying your backpack and you're stepping over rocks and you're going up and down hills and valleys, and when you get home, you're exhausted. But your body feels really amazing and your mind is singing with zen and calm. That's what dogs experience in indoor exercise done right. So one of the major reasons people give up or don't even start in indoor exercise is because they think you need to be a vet or a rehab person or know canine anatomy. They think science, and that's our fault as professionals for creating that false belief. Instead, think art, and this quote really embraces my approach. So here's what we're going to cover over the next 75 minutes or so. We're going to cover a better way to exercise your dog without those hours of walks, hiring a dog walker, paying a doggy daycare, or even getting out of your PJs if you don't want to. We'll get you some tips from the pros that you can use even if you've never done a formal class with your dog. We'll show you the power of 5 to 10 minute training sessions instead of long training sessions. And we'll share with you what we use that works for any budget and in any size space. So our lives changed with the confluence of these two dogs. Alive, a singleton puppy from my own litter that was fearful, reactive, yet bizarrely confident in some situations, and with a wickedly high energy level that she brought to every moment of her life. She truly embraced her name of being alive. And Ducati, my young Gordon setter, she was soft, a quick learner, elegant, athletic, and absolutely intolerant of high energy. So this is what Alive's life looked like before Ducati arrived. There was her mom Diaz and Ginger and my older Gordon setter Osiris, and we were super active, trialing in a variety of dog sports, training 6 days a week with classes and workshops, and growing and learning. A happy, energetic household. They were doing everything they loved and everything I loved, and you could see it in their bodies and in their minds. But then an accidental misgauge of life expectancies of a couple of my older dogs meant that I now had 5 dogs. And believe me when I say 5 is not my happy number. It may be for some people, but mine is too. Ducati was young, Moment was a brand new puppy on the scene. I could no longer keep up the pace of trialing and training, and the cost was restrictive, and I'm sure you can imagine. And even as a facility owner, where some of those things are actually tax write-offs, it was more than a mortgage every month. And the time commitment. I was building a new business, and with a young puppy, I had no time. So maybe this is none of your situation exactly, but it's no different from any change in your life, a new job, a new baby, move to a new city, lose a job, start a business, change in your health, or someone in your family, pandemic. This list is endless. I just couldn't do it anymore. The dogs weren't getting their physical and mental stuff that they needed. Now, don't get me wrong. They were 100% healthy, and outwardly they looked happy, but something was awry. I now had a conflict at home between Alive and Ducati. I was 100% managing dogs. There was barking. They were all trigger happy. Ducati's skills were failing. Their happiness was dropping. They were wound up. We weren't doing things that they loved. And then this all brought back an event from 2009 that had brought me to my knees. I had a happy, healthy 7-year-old English Cocker Spaniel, Diaz, Alive's mom, the 9th English Cocker Spaniel in Canada to achieve an agility trial championship, actively competing at one of the highest levels in the dog sport of agility. And one day, she refused to start, left the start line and ran under some spectator chairs, shaking like a leaf, refused to budge. And I felt horrible. I was embarrassed. I was shocked. She was telling me something that at the time I didn't fully understand, and nothing like this had ever happened to us before. Every day, there are thousands of dogs around the world that are happy and living active lives, just like Diaz, that are either hiding their pain or underperforming because something with their body or their mind is out of whack. And Ducati, well, she shut down completely, totally. She had zero confidence in anything I was asking her for. No matter what I tried, I wasn't able to get through to the real her. And when I say shut down, I mean locked down like Fort Knox. Shut down completely. So what would you do? I didn't know what to do. I knew I was missing something. I knew there had to be a better way, a solution for our problems. There had to be a way that didn't cost a fortune in time or in money. I knew there was a way that we could start having fun again, more fun, and really enjoy learning and growing together. I just couldn't see it yet. I sucked. And I was unhappy, and I was not approaching things as I would coach my own clients, and we were losing everything, and I was racked with guilt. Dog training is not rocket science, and indoor exercise is dog training. What was I missing? And then it hit me. I had no idea what to do, so I did 4 simple things. And in my world, simple always works best. I turned to someone else for insight, get another set of professional eyes on Ducati, and I pulled out my Foundation FitPos equipment, and I sat down and I dug into my memory on all things kinesiology. You remember my university days and my love of movement and of safety and performance? I love watching the body work. This literally saved our lives. And I made a decision after Ducati roughed up my 5-month-old puppy Moment. His full name is Old Sod's Moment in Time. He is my reminder every single day of how important this one decision was so he wouldn't become her next target. He is the inspiration for our company name, and he is the mascot for training in moments. I wasn't going to try and run the bad attitude off my dogs or run the energy off them like we hear all the time on the internet and again from those well-meaning pros at the dog park. I created the mess. I was going to identify it, calm it, redirect it, desensitize to it, and yes, call me crazy, I was going to generate it. I was going to use and transform that energy, get rid of the bad mojo, start having fun again, and get the smiles back into our lives. I wanted so badly to be able to time travel back to have been able to fix Diaz too, now that I had the right keys. It became my canvas to create happier, more confident dogs. And guess what happened along the way? I ended up with fitter, healthier, more active, more engaged dogs that were thoughtful, that made better choices every time, that drew people to me in the parks on our walks because they were happy to demo their new stuff and their new energy. But the reality is, as Maggie and Rosemary can attest to, I got back to what I really do, teach how to play. So what you're going to see from here on in is the complete framework for the program that I teach my clients. But before we get started, I wanted to share this first tip with you. Regardless of what your trainer says, or your friends, or your coworkers say, or your family, or the internet, you need to train your dog the way you live your life, for your life. So let's talk about what I call ditch the leash, ditch the park, sometimes. I want to tell you a quick story. You've heard about my crazy dogs and how we were living in chaos and how that energy overload was creating conflict. Now, imagine I took those same dogs, moved into a hotel, the size of a living room with a mini fridge, microwave, king-size bed, nowhere really to walk the dogs. And you'd think disaster, right? In 2016, my dogs and I lived under the roof of a Red Roof Inn somewhere in the United States for a total of 144 nights. So that's just under half of a year. My dogs were happier, fitter, calmer, and more confident than ever before. That experience brought me here. If we could be our best under less than ideal conditions, imagine what someone else could do. I went right back to my basics, my rules, and I just got started as if I was working with a brand new dog, a blank canvas. One of the things that I've found is that without principles or rules, most people struggle. They get lost. So I started looking at what the dogs and I were bringing to the table, our skills. I wanted to really see what I had to work with, because I'm just like you. We forget too fast all the amazing things we already have achieved with our dogs, and we don't give ourselves enough credit for overcoming so many obstacles along the way. And I used our framework number 1. It's what both you and your dog already know. Those tricks he does, the games he knows, shake a paw, spin, those tricks you love to show your friends. How smart is he? How fast he learns? And you the same. What are the things that you always get right and love to do? Is patience in your wheelhouse? Can you use a clicker? Can you bend over? I know, what a weird thing to be asking. But it's like wanting to run a triathlon and not knowing if you can even run or swim or bike first, of not having a plan. You get the idea. It's a brain dump of what you have to work with. So I want you to have a little bit of fun and write down, give it some thought, and then just write down, what is the one trick or skill that your dog really, really rocks? And I know everyone's going, this is a dog workshop. Why are there cars on the screen? But if I asked you this one question, how would you answer? If you are going to drive somewhere you don't live, what's the number one thing you need? And I've asked this question hundreds of times now, and the answers are always similar. People say things like a car, how it works. Just a quick story. If you've bought a brand new car in the last couple of years, what do they spend most of the walkthrough of the new car showing you? Yeah, how to sync the car's entertainment system with your iPhone Bluetooth. Not exactly something that you need to know to drive a car. However, they also say things like tires, air in the tires, gas, where are you going? Is it manual, automatic, self-driving? How to use all those things, how to sit, where to look. All of those things are important. But the number one thing is that you need to know the rules of the road for the city, the county, the state or the province, the country that you are driving in. Am I right? Americans, Canadians, and Brits, what side of the road are we driving on, right or left? Quick story, if you're from Canada or the US, what do you do when you're getting ready to pass another car? Honk your horn? Hell no! But if you don't know that that is exactly how you do it, when you rent a car in the mountainous countries in Southeast Asia, you're doomed. You might even die. Heck, if you did that in Los Angeles or New York City, you might die. In Ontario, on our driver's tests, there is a question that has been there for 30 plus years, and that asks that exact question. And honking is the wrong answer in North America, the right answer in Southeast Asia. And it's for the same reason that posture and position is our number one guiding principle. If you haven't heard me talk about this before, we've given you an ebook. It's over there on the right-hand side in the chat. You can download that at your convenience. And the information in there will help every dog it will help you to know your dog just a little bit better. I like to think of posture and position like an umbrella or a cocoon that keeps you dry, safe, and warm. It's a metric, something everyone can see. You can measure, and something you can always return to. It's the key that unlocks the strongest building blocks and is the magic for senior dogs, teenage dogs, adults, and those cuckoo crazy puppies. All dogs that we love. So let's talk about the language of the dog's body. So I'm not talking here about what we hear all the time, the dog's body language, ears back, whites of the eyes, lip licking. I'm talking about how the dog carries itself, how it stands, sits, lies down, moves, where it puts its feet, how it turns, things like that. What that tells you about what is going on under the fur, the good and the bad. It'll give you a whole new perspective. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on framework number 2 because it's all laid out for you in the ebook. Remember, over there on the right-hand side in the chat, you're going to download that before you leave the workshop. What you need to know about this is that it is what your dog brings to the table in terms of his physicality right now. So there are 5 assessments that are super simple, 4 for sure that you can do. They are passive and they're non-invasive. And when you're done, just use this and rate your dog on each one from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest, so you know what you're working with. That's like a potter, it's your clay. We have you look at these three positions. And no, this isn't a training of the sit or a down exercise. It's a watching exercise. Those three things are like an encyclopedia about your dog. And yes, we talk about the sloppy sits, aka the puppy sit, downs where the dog rolls on their hip, and the many challenges these pose, and why dog trainers are the most guilty of accidentally creating lifelong physical imbalances in your dogs. I bet you didn't know that, right? We focus on mastering the right way for your dog to sit, lie down, and stand in a balanced and strong form, where the front and back feet should be, what the back should look like. We work towards straight lines and watch carefully for wonky ones. It's super cool, super fun, and it's the heart of what makes us different. This is the lifeline of our programs and of any great indoor exercise program. Every movement is tied to this. So what I'd like you to do is at some point in time, make sure in your planner, because you all have a planner, right? For the week, schedule 15 minutes to just do the quick assessments so you at least have your starting point. But the cool thing is that indoor exercise done right with great strong foundations, building blocks, didn't just work for me, it worked for one of my previous students like magic. So I want to tell you a bit of their story. She and her hubby, they really wanted a fast dog for their dog sport hobby, and they got a second-hand border collie, a fast, high-energy one. And there are other types. They thought, as many people do, that fast automatically came with perfect behavior, all the foundations, and what some people call an on-off switch. But they don't. You know that. You're smart, right? And things went from bad to worse. Every day they packed up their car, they drove 15 to 25 minutes no matter what the weather, each way, and they tried to teach her and run off her energy. She was a wild child, choosing to do whatever she wanted, whenever. Frustrated and not knowing what to do, there they were with a dog that was nonstop high energy, had dangerous bad habits like chasing cars, no desire to walk on a leash, no foundations, no structure, no confidence, and no trust. At home or away, it was the same, 100% dog management, including the dreaded two-leash scenario, until one day she charged down the stairs and sent her dog mom flying down the stairs, crashing to the floor with a shattered shoulder and a broken arm. That shoulder would soon be entirely rebuilt, bionic if you will, new shoulder joint and all. Now that sounds almost horrific, right? But wait, there's more. Mom was 70 years old. That's 70. It couldn't continue. So one of the neat things that's happened to us as we traveled in the U.S. staying at the different Red Roof Inns is that the front desk people started to get to know us, and they'd ask if the dogs were coming up to visit, and that would eat into our stretch time. So I would take the dogs for a quick poop and a pee, but then I'd grab a balance disc like these two, or a Fitbone, and I'd take it up, and while they were talking to the dogs would actually be getting their exercise. And the people were curious, so I'd be sharing what I was checking in the dog's position, and I'd be moving the dogs in and out of the positions, making sure they were straightening up, especially since many days they might have been in the car for 9 to 10 hours, really focusing in on core principle number 1, and the dogs loved it. Now let's get back to my client and her second-hand border collie. They changed their story. Their problem was confidence, or a lack thereof, a lack of consistency, and leapfrogging over the basics. I wonder if there's any of you sitting out there going, I wonder if that might be me. After the fall, each day they worked together on tricks and games and building blocks. They started having fun. They both started building their confidence, their clarity, their consistency, their understanding, and their mutual trust blossomed. The smiles came back. The dream dog was now on the end of the leash, just one leash now. Now fast forward 2.5 years, and they earned an agility trial championship, now able to run off-leash safely and doing therapy work, a total transformation. So whether it's indoor exercise or dog training, because the two are 100% intertwined, the right strong building blocks will always triumph over the long term. Have you ever thought, my dog needs to be off leash to get real exercise? Sure, we all have. And I just want to say, there must be some form of an off-leash component to your dog's life, somewhere. But last year I spent about 6 months renting out my daughter's walkout basement apartment, and there is an awesome park 5 minutes away, hooked to the state park and great trails, and lots of people walk their dogs there. But everyone I met talked about their dog still being wound up at home, not getting enough exercise, even the little dogs. They all had their chuckets and their frisbees and even some of those adverse type collars that allow the dogs to be off leash, and their dreaded mobile tethered through the earbuds. And I'm sure you've been there too, if you're being honest. I had my core tricks and games and exercises that we do with no body equipment, using our foundations and no foam. Using the boulders or the stairs or the cool logs, we built little training sessions on each. Even just sitting on a log, watching the deer walk by, or doing some weight shifting, getting a drink from the creek. They even every once in a while would get a bonus swim in the cool river pond some days. Now, anyone who's followed my programs and my posts knows that I absolutely never, ever tell or ask a dog to stay or wait on anything I use in indoor exercise. It's just plain unfair to the dog. When the dog bails, it's valuable intel. They are uncomfortable and or unbalanced. Maybe it's too much of a challenge. Maybe they can't get their feet to fit right, or they can't get them in the right position, or maybe they simply don't have the strength for it. Whatever. There is zero, and I'm going to repeat, zero value in making a dog stay in positions that are not balanced. If you're one of the pros listening to this, I encourage you to step back and look at what you're actually doing and what you're telling the dog. When dogs know that they won't be coerced into uncomfortable situations, their confidence soars. Their newfound levels of confidence fuels a desire to learn. Sure, they may hop off, and they probably will, but I can assure you 100% that they will be back on happier and stronger. And what is great about using things like we find in the park or in our home is that equipment is you really get to see how important it is to allow the dog to be free to bail off. So let's look back. Framework number 1 is what you and your dog already know. Framework number 2 is what does your dog bring to the table in terms of his physicality, his body. And those two puzzle pieces represent you as a team, and each team is unique. You are one of these arrows. Can you see how there is a different starting point for everyone? That a wrong start, an unguided start, could in fact be very, very wrong for you and your dog. Now, the remaining two principles are the right order and the right equipment. Now, there's always the right gear for your dog. The 5 assessments that we've given you will get you thinking about what height, duration, and movement is best for your dog to start on. It's why we use the custom fit plank as our starting piece, because it's made specifically for your dog and brings in your new knowledge. Now, the fit plank, it's a DIY that is just right for your dog, and then it is paired with another piece of gear after you've got some pieces in place like these. And you can go ahead and you can pick the DIY options, or you can pick a bought option, or you can combine them. Just make sure that you're picking the right gear. And the last principle, the right order. Our progress path is strategic and logical, following each of our 6 building blocks in order. It works on any piece of equipment and for any skill you're trying to teach. It works for everyone just wanting to have fun with their dogs. It works for recreational sport dogs, those weekend warriors. It works for the pro teaching lessons. And yes, it also works for the elite canine athlete dog. The right order is the glue that holds all 6 building blocks together. Cool, right? A better way to exercise your dog without hours of walks or hiring a dog walker or paying a doggy daycare or even getting out of your PJs if you don't want. Isn't that awesome? So the second leg of my table is what I call the Learn Like a Pro phase. This is Islay. She was 10 months old at the time we shot this, and she's a standard poodle with pretty much no training, and the foot belongs to my training partner. It's not her dog. When we started recording some of the videos for our new course, I needed dogs that had no formal training in anything, and Islay was the perfect fit. And guess what? Even though my partner has the right equipment and she knows the right way to use it, she was moving all over the place, and the dog tried to figure things out. Whenever my training partner doesn't get something, because she's a former professional dancer, she tends to circle. Totally confuses the dog. That movement, whether it's circling or just moving around, that's one of the most common things people learning new stuff do. It gets confusing. So let's watch Islay in her first attempt. It's a simple game. It's called touch off and over. The front feet is what we're working on, the first steps of building block number 1. So what we're looking for is we're looking for her to figure out that we just want her to touch 1 or 2 feet on the board and either go over it or step back away from it. Simple as that. Nothing else. So let's watch that video.
So am I luring her at all, or?
No, you just, it's anything she does.
Should I walk her?
Yeah, you can move around, you can do whatever, she's not sure. If she doesn't approach it, then lure her up. Okay, just use a lure. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a touch, toss out. Good girl. Yes, reward that. Totally reward that.
Excuse me. Silly girl.
That was awesome. She's a great video for. So kind of all over the place, and you can see her lift her feet, trying to figure stuff out. Every session is short, training in moments, not minutes or hours. It happens fast. This confusion, you see, didn't erode her confidence and really jacked up her learning. So that session was 47 seconds long. And after a 10-minute break, nothing else, just to chill out. We put her off in her X-Pen, and she was watching the other dogs. She came back, as you'll see shortly. Her and my training partner needed a better roadmap, more guidance, a little secret here. Shh. I deliberately gave her the what we wanted the dog to do, not the this is how we do it talk. Isn't that what happens in most classes? In anything you see on YouTube, or even when friends demo stuff, they tell you the end result. They show you the end result, but there is no clear path. There's no guidance. They aren't clear on the how. So she comes back, confidence intact, understanding better. This is always your first step. So I want to be really clear. She did absolutely nothing from the end of the last video you saw until this one. So let's watch her now. Yes, good girl. Oh, my beautiful. I wish I can use that one actually for 2 modules. I don't know whether you saw her hold her back foot. Yes, good girl.
As soon as you see.
Anytime that foot's up. Good girl.
Good girl. Yeah.
Yes. So why don't you stand at one end?
We'll do the. Can you do
Put
this?
yes,
Yeah.
reward. Keep rewarding
Good
that.
Girl.
Keep rewarding it.
Good
yeah, it's a girl.
girl.
Toss a treat out there.
Okay.
Good girl. Okay, one
You're
more.
so funny. You're so funny. Come on.
Yes, reward.
Yeah.
Lift it up a bit and she'll come up on that foot. Yes,
Yeah,
keep rewarding that.
Good job.
If you can slide, that's it.
Whoopsie doops. Oh, very nice.
Good.
You got the treat and
So
stay
toss the
on,
treat out
sweetie.
that way
Good job.
and put her away. Cool, right? So you see the progression that she makes. You see her lifting her feet. You see is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but you can see a massive increase in understanding. So when I was rebuilding my life with the dogs, I knew I needed to get what I knew into some structure, a logical order. I taught lots of indoor exercise classes and workshops, but I was building on the fly based on the individual dogs in the class, and they were all different. There was a process. And following that process was the key to massive transformations in dogs like Rhea the Bernese Mountain Dog, who became one of my demo dogs, and Harris, a rescue hound cross you see here, with a fear of things, and my own Alive, who was a high-energy, reactive, yet fearless singleton puppy who became my #1 demo dog. My first challenge was helping people figure out what to use for their gear in building block #1, the starting point. Every one of our dogs is different, even brothers and sisters and moms and dad, and that affects how you start. Okay, so I admit I had to leave this one in. I've seen it over and over. People buy equipment and they get stuck not knowing what to do or why or when, like these people from our free Facebook group. And I wanted to share these two things. Well, one person saying we've had ours for years and never mastered the rear feet until they watched our training. Things that people say they think the stuff has been sitting around unused since they bought them because they couldn't figure out to use them. So you are not alone. Having a crystal ball would be awesome. I wish I had one sometimes, but you shouldn't have to think to know what your next step should be. So it's kind of like going to the gym and thinking you can use a machine without adjusting the settings from a previous person. Sometimes it works, but most times it's uncomfortable. Too hard, too easy, not right. Your unique arrow is like that. Your dog's physicality, how he sits, stands, lies down, turns, and his skills, what he knows and what he doesn't, and his actual structure and history, like Harris's, make up your starting point. Overlay that with our building blocks process, transformation is inevitable. You end up doing the right thing for your dog. Your unique arrow defines the height of the right equipment, the time they hold a position on it, and the stability and or wobble of that gear. We have all made mistakes, so we're here to help you avoid injury and to help you build their confidence and joy and their body and their brains. So what's awesome about indoor exercise is also how it makes you feel and how it makes the dog feel. And I want to tell you about a client I had in my class who had a high energy mixed breed in their family and living in a subdivision that had a lot of these subdivisions have rules where they couldn't have a fence of any sort. So she was actually walking her dog 4 to 6 times a day to try and get rid of that energy. And when she came into my classes and she's watching the dog and she shares this with me, she says, it's like living the doggy Olympics vicariously through him. We both just love it. And he's so tired afterwards, and I don't have to walk him so much. Now, they still walk, just not like before. Now they walk to enjoy the walk and the quiet, not because they're trying to burn off energy. Our building blocks build and enhance each other. Skip a block, you might see temporary results, but eventually, like that proverbial house of cards, you'll both hit a wall of confusion and frustration. We became experts in indoor exercise because we build confidence with fit bodies and fit minds. It takes patience following the path, taking each little step in the right order and making sure that the dog has super confidence before stepping to the next one. Too many people give up because they haven't grasped the importance of the building blocks. So let's quickly walk through the blocks. Building block number 1 is 2 front feet on only. And this is a pretty natural position. If you look around, you'll see that your dog is already doing it and in some form around the house. They stand up on the window ledge to look out. They put their feet up on the Chesterfield, stuff like that. But we take it beyond that. But it's the easiest of all of them. Building block number 2 is 2 back feet on. And to clarify, this is back feet only on. The front feet are on the ground. Building block number 3 is 4 feet on and line up, a little bit of line up. Once the dogs have fluency and have mastered 1 and 2, building block number 3 is easy. If you leapfrog over 1 and 2, you are actually building the house of cards. You will struggle when you get to building block number 3. Building block number 4, we really focus on posture and position, not just as an observation, but we actively work to get it along with reinforcing the line-up position directly in front of us. Building block number 5 teaches a dog how to move slowly and safely between the pieces of equipment, a concept that we call 2-4-2, which is a 2-4-2 transition, and building block number 6, which is the creme de la creme, creating stillness and calm from a place of high energy and high movement quickly is the ultimate step in indoor exercise. It's what gives indoor exercise its ultimate power, creating fit bodies, fit minds, and super confidence. So what's interesting is that particularly with building block number 5 and 6, these are things that are rarely talked about in the world of indoor exercise. It's like they're glossed over, but they are the most powerful when used with the first 4 building blocks. So you guys have seen how easy it is when you follow these tips from the pros. It's so easy to rock your blocks. Is this making sense? Now I've got another tip for you, and there's a reason that I popped it in to the presentation at this point. It's overwhelm. Remember, it's overwhelm that derails most of us. It stops us dead in our tracks from taking any action. Remember, you don't have to get everything right. You just need to get started. And I know, because I've thrown a lot at you so far, and we still have a bunch more. So remember that as you're going through. So the third leg of that table is there is always time for the important things. And we'll show you how to do that. So let me share one of my biggest ever mistakes. Remember I told you that Ducati shut down on me? Like completely shut down? Well, that was 100% my fault. I tried doing what people with dogs that have OCD type personalities do. And my circle was full of that type of, of high achievers of that type of person, people on world teams, high performers with that type of dog, dogs that learn by rote. And maybe you know some of those. The dogs and the people that you just show them something one time and they just get it, and then they do that same thing over and over and over and over again. And for most people, most of our dogs, that's a recipe for failure. It doesn't mean they have no focus, and it doesn't mean that they have no drive. It means that they're smart enough to know that not doing the same crap over and over and over again isn't getting them what they really need and want towards their goals, or progressing them in a manner that's right for them. And I bet you have one of those smart dogs too. Am I right? So back to Ducati. Our private sessions were 1 hour. That's what I paid for. Yet her best was always in the first 5 to 10 minutes. She was fast, focused, driven, and learning in those first minutes. But I hammered away like a good private student, wanting to be taught, wanting to get value for every penny I spent. I've even made this mistake with my own private students, letting them work way beyond the moments that made the difference. And when I started creating my own process, what eventually became our signature course, I realized the major flaw, that more is not better, that less is actually best. I made a change, started focusing on training in moments, using the tiny pockets of time in my busy day the changes I saw in my dogs was monumental. Happier, more confident, more energy. Yes, the good mojo kind. And everything started coming together. Training that got better results and in less time. So one of the first places that people get off track is in the actual doing of an exercise. That's what happens when you do simple. Sometimes people just think they disregard the simple. So I'm going to walk you through the exact process I use to teach a dog or a new person the right way to introduce the first 2 building blocks. And as you'll hear about a bit later, we always use our custom fit plank to do this. So there are 2 steps to teaching building block number 1. The first one, and we always start with side entry first. So the dog, as you can see in the photo up there, the dog is facing the longest side of the board. The goal is for the dog to step up with 1 foot or 2 feet onto the board anywhere. There is no specific place and there's no specific position that you're looking for initially. As you work through this, you're going to fine-tune that a little bit. But the reason that we do side entry first is because for the average dog, you're working on a board that's between 30 inches and 48 inches. So 30 inches and 4 feet long. All that space is available for them to step up. It gives them the opportunity to succeed. The chance of failure is quite slim. So that's the first place that we start. You're not looking for any duration. You're simply looking, as you saw in Islay's video, you're simply looking for the dog to step up onto the board, place their second foot on there so they've got 2 feet on there, and you're breaking it down in little pieces as you go. And you're rewarding it. You need to figure out how far away from the board you need to be on the other side, because as you'll see in the ebook, you need to give the dog enough room to allow their neck and their head to relax and be in a nice, the perfect position, which will be obviously overhanging the board. So that's the first place you start. And we simply start on the side entry because it sets the dog up for success. You're looking to get to a point where 85% of the time that you introduce the board to your dog is voluntarily, happily, and confidently stepping onto the board and holding it for 1 or 2 seconds without any problems. You will know when you hit that. If when you're getting ready to place your board on the floor, your dog is trying to step on the board before it's on the ground. Once they've got that, then you can set yourself up in a straddle position over the board. So the reason that we do this second is because, number one, the dog, because of the custom nature of the fit plank, it's only just a teeny bit wider than the width of the dog's feet. So they literally only have one choice of where to step up. So in confidence, it is a higher requirement on their confidence level, unlike being on the wide side of the fit plank. That's the first piece. The second piece is that you don't know exactly where you need to straddle the board, because you need to be close enough to the end that they're going to step up on so that you can get their neck and their head in a natural position without being so close to the end that you're in their space and they won't step up. And you don't want to be so far back straddling the board that you give the dog enough room to come up with all 4 feet. So it's a learning process. So the way we do things in our program is we set things up for success. We do not set dogs up to fail. So you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to set yourself up. It's going to be a little bit of a trial and error. You're going to reward the dog when the dog steps up with the 2 front feet. This will be, you will know if you went too fast on the first step, if you struggle with this. And if you find yourself struggling at all with this, that means you went too fast on the other one. You need to go, but you need to go back to the next step. And again, on this one, you're working till you get to that 85% or 85% of the time or more that you set the board up like this and yourself up. The dog is confidently, happily, voluntarily stepping onto the board. Now, if you still have to be luring them up or anything like that, then you've progressed too far. You've made a wrong step along the way. Let's have a look at Casper. So here's what's cool about this. This is Casper, and he's an 8-pound Papillon that was aggressive, very fearful of life, living in a very busy professional family. And for all of his life, since the day I met him as a tiny, tiny, tiny little puppy, I had never seen him not charge or nip instructors or do any activity without always being in fight or flight mode. And it's funny, yet humbling, to be charged by an 8-pound dog. And he had a dream life at home. His owner, a very accomplished trainer herself, but with little time. And something needed to change for him. So we introduced indoor exercise to him. It was brand new, helping him think clearly and doing it in super fast sessions, in 5-minute sessions. For 6 weeks, we focused on foundations, confidence, and on happiness, really watching his ears, his eyes, his back, his tail. And then one day, he left the peanut he was working on, and he trotted happily over to his dog bag. And I bet you have one of those Mary Poppins bags too, with the tugs and the toys and the treats in it, just in case the dog can't focus, because that's what you were told you needed. Out he pops with his tiny rubber ball, and she and I looked at each other, puzzled. What was he doing? We were both expecting him to take it to her, but he happily brings it over to me, dropping it at my feet. Now, I want to be really clear here to let you know that to this point, Casper had not done anything other than charge and nip at me. We had an agreement. He could come up to me 6 feet away, and I would toss treats out to him because obviously I didn't want to encourage that behavior. But here he is at my feet with the ball. He was smiling through his whole body. Something had changed. By changing the game, by changing the time, by changing the focus, we had created calm, thoughtful, and confident. So I want you to just take a minute and watch him in action.
Yes. Left. The other left. Yeah! Good boy. What? Yes. You gonna stay on this station?
He says, "This is my favorite."
Your favorite? Oh, yes. What you gonna do?
Now your goal is to get him to be able to do that, keeping his rear feet on there.
Keeping your feet on.
So that's pretty cool, right? That is a happy little Papillon right there. So what you're going to learn next is what I believe to be the #1 reason people never do more than just dabble in indoor exercise. YouTube videos and Facebook are great resources, don't get me wrong there. But as you heard early on, a lot of it is either wrong or harmful for your dogs. Many are showcasing methods that are, they're really a house of cards waiting to happen. It fails to talk about the whole essential foundation needed, and my heart breaks for everyone, dog and people, when I see that. The best intentions. Teaching a dog to hold his back feet on something is not natural, and there are 2 ways to do it. Some dogs like one way, some like the other, and bizarrely, this can be how people choose can be attributed to hype and flash. People tend to try teaching the hardest and most unnatural way first. Talk about a recipe for a frustrated, pent-up energy dog when what they were trying to do was actually use up that energy. So let's talk this. So this is building block number 2, 2 back feet on. Now we are starting completely differently from what we did in building block number 1. We're starting with this setup, where you are facing the short end of the fit plank. And we do it this way, again, because we want to set you guys up for success. What will happen is the dog will come up to the plank on a bit of an angle. Most dogs do this. They come up on an angle to the long side, and then they will walk across the plank and step down. Some dogs will come up from the other short end and walk straight along the plank, but that's the first scenario is more common. You don't know exactly how much space you need to leave between where your feet are and where the end of the board is. So excuse me just a minute, I'm going to grab a drink. And that's the reason, is that you need to be able to give the dog enough room to comfortably get their front feet off the board, yet leave their back feet on the board. You don't want to give them too much. You give them too much room, they just walk up on the board and they just walk right off. You don't give them enough room, and several things will happen. You don't give them enough room and the dog will just stand there and look at you, or they will just walk across to the other side of the board. They'll just step across the board and not get it. So that's the reason, that's one of the reasons that we do that. If you have done building block number 1 correctly, the dog is bringing a knowledge with him that says that there is high value for placing feet on the board. Yes, we were working only on front feet, but they generalize that to a certain degree and understand when you give them the chance to think in scenarios that's setting up success for them, you let them think, oh, maybe there's also value for just leaving my back feet on there. Okay? So you're going to figure out your position. And remember, everything that we're doing, you're remembering what you learned in the ebook about what is the position, the optimal position you're aiming at for your dog. Some dogs have a bigger personal space than others. So this is why I can't say, well, you have to be, if you have this kind of dog, you have to be this far away, because every dog, just like people, all have individual personal spaces. So it's trial and error. You got to figure that out. You can use your food reset, shoot a treat behind the board so that the dog is back further away. You do not want to have them running in, so you're not going to set it up so they're racing onto it. You just want them to have them walk in confidently. If you've built building block 1 well, this will come fairly easily. Second reason is you don't know when that dog is going to take the first step with the first back foot to step off of the plank. That is something that you will have to learn, and you can't see his feet. All you can see is his upper body, right? Because his feet are underneath that. So you have to learn how to read your dog's body to know when is that first foot looking like it's going to start the movement to step off of the board, because you want to get your rewards in just before that happens. That takes practice. With this, the positions you see these two dogs in, this is ideally where you want them to end up. And most dogs, regardless of their size, will eventually leave their back feet between 6 and 8 inches from the end of the board. But by doing it this way, we give them every opportunity to step off, with their front feet close to the board or further away, but we give them lots of opportunities. Sometimes they can take 1, 2, 3 steps on the board, so it gives you the chance to figure out how and when they're going to do that last step that you want them to learn that I don't want you to take that last step to step off. Okay? That's why we do this. Again, you're aiming at 85% of the time that you're putting your board down and you're setting yourself up in this, the dog is voluntarily offering to come up and do it. If you see any sort of stress, go back to the other one. Once you've got this, there is a second step, same as we did in building block number 1, is you can then turn yourself around so that you are facing the long side. Again, now you'll know how far away from the board you need to be, and the dog will approach it from the long side. And the reason we do it in this order, completely reversed to building block number 1, is because when the dog to leave their back feet on, they have one step on and then it's off. So you only have one shot at correctly rewarding. But if you've done the first way, as you see on this screen, then your dog already knows what's expected of him. So you're just reinforcing, adding another variable to it. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's what's called the step through method. That is the easiest way, and there's many ways to to build on that, but that's fundamentally how you build that. I'm going to open my notes again. So, but I also wanted to make sure that you understand what the second method is, which is the least natural, and it's called the reach back method. And in our programs, the dogs and the puppies have to master the backup game before they start this training. So the reach back method, the dog has his bum to the plank, the long side of the fit plank, and they are stepping back with their foot and stepping up onto the plank. They are maintaining their perfect posture with a nice straight back looking forward. They are backing up blind. So that's why it's important. There's got to be a reason for the dog to want to back up. And that's why if you've built the step through method beautifully, the dog now has incredible value for his back feet on the plank, and he will step back onto it. He understands how it works. With our backup game, they already have learned how to, without pressure. And when I say pressure, that means a lot of people teach backup by stepping into the dog or by putting barriers in place. We do not teach backup that way. We teach backup by watching the dog's feet and letting the dog figure out that it's moving one foot backwards. That's what I need to do. So that's when it's important. That backup game is in one of the free libraries for you to learn. So with this reach back method, the dog is, if you look on the left hand side, there is a black paw print underneath the number 4. That would be a dog's back foot, and they are stepping back, and you are going to be rewarding them as the instant they make a movement to move that foot back towards their plank. But that's so far down the line right now for you. Now, I do want to tell you, I want to give you a representation of why this is challenging. They're backing up blind. So if you think about backing up your car, you have 3 ways to see what you're backing up to, don't you? You have your mirrors, you have your rear view mirror in the center, and you have your 2 side view mirrors on the side of the car. So you have 3 points of view to be able to see what you're backing up to. That's number 1. Number 2, you can use your backup camera. Like some people use that exclusively. You can use your backup camera to see what you're backing up to. And number 3, you can go old school and you can put your arm around the passenger's headrest and rotate your head and look at what you're backing up to. So you can always, we don't back up blind. In the reach back method with the dogs, they are backing up blind because we want to make sure that they maintain their nice straight posture. I'm not going to go any further on that one, but just so that you know that it's there. So you can see it's not just possible, it's essential to master the power of 5 to 10 minutes instead of long training sessions. Be free of stress created by the drudgery of a commute or the embrace, and then you can go in and you can embrace your super busy and fulfilling life. I've given you stuff here that you can do. You've seen 45 seconds, a minute. You can do multiple sessions a day. I've got one more tip for you, and I'm putting it in right now after this reach back method for a reason. Don't complicate stuff. Just keep it really, really, really simple, and I'll give you some more things as we go along to figure out why or how to keep it nice and simple. So, what is that fourth what is that fourth leg of that table that we're missing? Pillar number 4. It's possible for everyone, everywhere. That's your last leg of the table. Now let me tell you a story about how I went from having a full professional gym just like this one to what really worked best. As I pivoted my life, closing my training facility, I needed money like oxygen to buy food, pay for accommodation, basically to live. And I decided to sell my FitPause equipment and figure out a better way to create later on to create my gym for my life. Now, all that equipment, if you can believe it, it sold in seconds because I had a network of people in the dog sport world that were already using indoor exercise in their dogs' daily lives. With their adults, with their teenagers, with their puppies, and with their senior dogs, with their competition dogs, and with their retired dogs, and with their family pets. Because the bottom line is, each of our dogs is really, first and foremost, a family pet. In my new temporary small hotel room, an idea came to me, and this is where the idea of our custom fit plank was born. I needed something to tuck into a closet that I could use for all 6 building blocks. And it had to be able to support my 4 guiding principles and that it didn't cost too much. I'd used aerobic steps and agility travel planks before, but they didn't tick off my requirements. The custom fit plank did. So your custom fit plank is simple. It's easy to build. It's sized exactly for your dog. It's cost effective and it fits any space. Not what you expected, is it? We provide you the instructions to build a plank. Well, there's written instructions and there's video instructions, specifically for your dog. And I actually have all 5 of these right now. They're all different lengths, they're all different widths. And what is super funny about the plank is that most people, when I introduce it in a class or a workshop, they think it's easy and they almost discount it. But the dogs almost always look at it with suspicion and walk around it. It's kind of funny. So one of the key features of the Fit Plank is that it is straight and stable, which means that if you remember back to my number 1 core principle, we're looking for great posture. The specific sizing of the Fit Plank, just a half to an inch wider than the back feet on each side, naturally and passively helps the dog get and hold a nice straight back. So, nose to the base of the tail. It also keeps the positioning of the feet in alignment with a straight front edge and without extra space for the feet to be placed in a kind of a whatever position. The positions that we talked about in the principles, sit, stand, down, and even turn around, can all be done on the Fit Plank regardless of what size your dog is. When the dog's back end is curved, there is little room for the back foot on the side that the dog is curved to. So that's the 2 photos with the red arrow. So what happens is they naturally move to a more natural, straighter position like the one without the arrow. So this is one of the best tools in your toolbox. Because it burns off mental and physical energy, it's good for the dog's body. It can be used by all dogs. It's portable, and it's a key baseline that you can always return to at any stage of life for a checkup. Now, I wanted to show you a moment that I love getting the privilege of experiencing in my personal workshop. So this photo is from a workshop I did last year in the Midwest US, and I'm always blown away when owners are working with dogs they're working through the introduction, the thinking, and the confidence, building confidence in a dog when their dog is worried about life in general. And the owner is also brand new to it. So this boxer was exactly that dog, worried about everything. So we followed the process. She went from a dog that at the beginning of the day, she couldn't even look at that Fit Plank at the starting. And happily and confidently by the end of the sessions was stepping onto not only those balance pads, see the blue things on the side, but also the Fit Plank. And then, and we don't have a picture of it, but she then transitioned to where she was leaving her back feet only on the fit plank and her front feet on the pads. That is the hard piece to get. Wouldn't you love to see your dog have that kind of progress? So any movement or skill that we plan for the wiggly and the wobbly equipment, we create first the basics on the fit plank. Each of the 6 building blocks, and it works the same on for every one of the blocks, for every piece of equipment. They have to work on thinking, even if they can already easily do it on the ground. They have to figure out the how to make their body do it in the space, which uses up that mental energy too. It provides mental stimulation. It tires them out. Remember, core principle number 2, they can always bail off, which they do a lot when they're just getting started. Each movement, each little choice they make uses up energy. And guess what? That energy they're using up, it is giving you back time, because you don't need to use that time for these crazy multiple walks that people keep telling you you need to do. So you can truly enjoy your walks with the dog, not view them as a chore. With the fit plank, unlike anything else, it's a baseline to return to anytime to see your progress and even follow up on an issue, because I know for a fact that now you're better connected with your dog's physicality. Your inner mind will be noticing things that you hadn't seen before. Your veterinarian is going to love your new knowledge. Believe me, the vets really want to see more fitter, less overweight dogs in their practices. So, the magic of the fit plank is that the dog learns what ideal posture feels and position feels like, and will replicate that on other equipment and in other combinations and in their day-to-day life. It encourages stillness and calmness naturally. It provides opportunities to improve the functioning of their joints. Dogs are just like us. They want to do things that feel good, both in the body and in the mind. So, from here, it's all about basic training. Adding layers of learning, like a math equation. One tiny fraction added to the next, tiny changes, stepping backwards to shore up the skill sets, then moving forwards. Like the slide shows, it's building upwards and from a tiny base. And then the rest is simple. It's just rinse and repeat, adding, changing, doubling up, removing layers as you reach your goals, and change them and add to those. And by embracing our unique, purposeful games like these 3. Now remember, these are 3 of hundreds of games that we have. So the Follow Me game. This game embraces and reinforces building blocks 1 through 4. It solidifies the dog's understanding while improving their bodies and stimulating their minds. So it's a simple game. You set yourself up exactly as you see the feet there, and you move right and you move left, so that each step you take, whether it's a big step or whether it's a little step, and you'll play around with those, because you're looking for the dog to line up directly in front of you. So and move their feet. So it's very simple. You could even do this exercise on a curb in a parking lot. That's why I love these things. You honestly don't have to be working on equipment all the time. Then we have the downward dog game, and it isn't a recreation of a yoga pose. It challenges them to stay on top of their impulse management, to be calm, to step mindfully between each of the blue and green targets, to stay lined up, to maintain the best posture possible. So those targets, they can be flat pieces of non-slip surface on the ground. They can be 14-inch discs like the ones you saw before. They can be fit bones. They can be balance pads. I've even used the snoods, the fabric things that go over dogs with long ears so that they keep the ears back out of their dinner. It can be literally anything. But this is a super cool game that embraces all of the building blocks. And the last one, which is the touchdown game, which is simple, but uses each one of the building blocks. It reinforces the relationship between the owner and the dog. It rewards the dog for choosing the best possible position and posture and allowing you the opportunity to create an environment for your dog to become their very best. Those two things on the side, you saw it in the boxer that we had in balance pads in there. They can be discs, they don't have to be the same thing. They can have a balance pad on one side, a disc on the other. You can have a flat target on one side, flat target on the other. It's simple. It's all about coming back to that central lineup position, stable, balanced, stepping off to the right. Because remember, all of these, everything that we do, what you do on the right, you've got to do on the left. What you do on the front, you've got to do on the back. It's all about balance, keeping it together. So you know, it's possible for everyone, everywhere. My mission is to help as many people as possible have access to this. Now, I know your brains are probably feeling like they're going to explode right now, that you are on overload. I know you're excited to get started, and I know many of you are feeling a little like this. But remember, tip number 2 about overwhelm. So we've shared a ton of information and ideas with you, and you're all rethinking the way you exercise your dog, both for right now and for the future. So normally, this is where I'd be starting to pivot, to put an incredible offer in front of you and share with you all the reasons that you need to do this, but that's not what's going to happen. Remember, there is nothing for sale in this webinar, but you do want to know what's next, right? So I want you to think back to the reasons why you started this webinar, why you joined us, and about what wasn't working in your life with your dog. Are you thinking how this does make a ton of sense, both for now and when you go back to your job, or the kids go back to school, or your business reopens, or the weather is so sucky outside that you just simply don't want to go out? Can you see how much your dog could learn and grow in any short period of time? Are the new ideas starting to bubble up in your mind? And do those ball thingies make more sense now? Can you see how indoor exercise could easily fit into an overall wellness plan for your dog? Now, for most of you, this used to be your normal. Am I right? No time for anything between. You had your commute, you had your job, you had your social life, you had your hobbies, maybe you even got some me time in there. And now, it's just you and the dog. No dog friends, a crap load of time, and a deficit of ideas, and an incredible opportunity. But we all know that this pandemic is not going to last forever, that we are going to go back to something that looks like the slide before. This is your gift. You probably didn't recognize the wrapping paper at first. Most people didn't. But April 2020 is National Canine Fitness Month in the USA and in Canada, and officially, as of now, we are designating it in your country as well. We are actually designating 2020 as National Canine Fitness Year. You have been given the gift that you only ever imagined. So think about it. No more BS excuses about things you might be able to do or things you might be able to get rid of, stop doing. Today and every day this week, regardless of the weather, you're now spending more time walking the dog than you ever imagined. And not much has changed, right? Except maybe now you can't even go to your favorite park or trail. So we just want to let you know that we've got 2 things that you must grab ASAP. And they're over in the chat box, including this quick reference set of cards to your ideal posture. It is the great complement to the book that you're also going to download. And again, it's all in the library. When I was first trying to figure out how to reshape our lives in that hotel room at the Red Roof Inn, I had no plan. My world seemed to be spinning out of my control, just like today probably feels to you. Another Groundhog Day. I seemed to be spending either all day juggling dogs or not at all. So one day I sat down, wrote a quick reminder to myself, and a couple of exercises I'd focus on that week. A couple of exercises, not an exercise plan. And taped it to the mirror so that I saw it first thing in the morning. And me and the dog started following it. Was it perfect right away? No. But it helped me make sense of why doing indoor exercise things with the dogs was so important. So I know some of you might be thinking, sure, this works for you. You don't have to deal with my life. You don't know my challenges. And I want you to know something about me. I'm nothing special. I have no supernatural gifts, no ability to leap tall buildings. Nada. My only superpower is my bounce back ability, like you guys. I make more than my fair share of mistakes and poor decisions. And that's why I love this system. I don't have to worry about that anymore. My goal is that you leave here with tools, resources, and a new perspective on exercising your dog. And with that, you feel every single one of these and you build on them. So guys, I wanted to make sure this wasn't me during this webinar. You know, the big one. And I needed to make sure that you had everything at your fingertips to start exercising your dog indoors as soon as you finished watching. And over the last few months, the team created a vault of learning for you where more than 95% of it is free. You heard me right, free. Many of which we have charged for in the past. But our commitment is to you and to your dogs. The link is there, and you'll get it in an email as well, available for you 24/7 whenever you're ready. So on this, there is an email address. If you have any questions, just simply email us. If you want, and we'd love to have you, join us at the Fit Body, Fit Mind Dog free group in Facebook. And you can ask your questions in there. We are always here to ask your questions, and we want to thank you for coming and joining us for this hour and a half of training. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.